This company was hailed as Germany's answer to Silicon Valley, a fintech giant processing payments, offering advanced analytics and valued at billions. It all collapsed in a cloud of lies, with missing money and international intrigue. Welcome to Crooks in Suits, where we look at some of the world's biggest corporate scandals. My name is Ray. I'm a chartered accountant with 35 years' experience, and I've worked as a chief financial officer across banking and fintech. This is the story of Wirecard, one of Europe's biggest corporate frauds. Wirecard's story begins in the late 1990s dot-com boom. It was founded in 1999 in Munich, Germany, by a small team of entrepreneurs. The company started as a modest payment processor. Its core business was simple, helping websites handle online credit card payments. In those early days, Wirecard catered to a specific niche, that is, high-risk clients such as adult content providers and gambling sites. These industries needed discreet, reliable payment solutions, and Wirecard filled that gap, acting as an intermediary between merchants, customers, and banks. These sort of industries are considered high risk, not just in terms of reputation, but also high chargebacks through buyer's regret and elevated fraud risk. Overall, the global payment industry is enormous. The payment highways are provided by companies such as Visa and MasterCard, with payment processors such as PayPal and Stripe connecting to these highways and carrying on the actual business of accepting payments. These companies are all paid by taking a small percentage of each transaction, around 2%. Wirecard struggled at first, but was sold in 2001 to an Austrian businessman, and he merged with his own wire transfer business. He kept the Wirecard name and brought in a KPMG consultant, Marcus Braun, who was appointed as CEO. Braun styled himself as a visionary. He was often seen in a black turtleneck sweater like Steve Jobs or Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos. He predicted the end of cash, and he positioned Wirecard as a leader in financial commerce, with supposedly clever tech like AI, blockchain, and data analytics. In reality, I think that he used spreadsheets. He had a captivating presence that won over politicians, bankers, and media. At times, he was apparently described as the Steve Jobs of the Alps. However, insiders and critics saw a controlling, growth-obsessed figure who could turn combative when threatened. Around this time, another key figure entered, Jan Marsalek, a young Austrian hired in 2000 for his expertise in early mobile tech. Marsalek would rise to become chief operating officer and play a central role in the company's global ambitions, later central to its downfall. Marsalek was the flashy international fixer to Braun's visionary CEO, ambitious, secretive, and allegedly entangled in espionage and crime. At its heart, Wirecard was a financial services company. It issued credit and debit cards, processed transactions for e-commerce sites, and offered banking services. Wirecard positioned itself as a one-stop shop for digital finance. Its growth was meteoric, as you can see from the chart. Wirecard expanded aggressively through acquisitions. In 2004, it went public via a reverse merger, that is, moving the company into an already listed vehicle so to avoid the traditional IPO route. By the mid-2000s, it was buying up companies in Asia, Europe, and beyond, entering markets like India, Singapore, and the Philippines. A big part of their strategy involved third-party acquirers, or TPAs, outsourced partners in regions where Wirecard did not have a license. To operate as a payment processor, you need some sort of license. Payment businesses are generally regulated. These TPAs supposedly handle billions in transactions, especially in Asia, funneling revenues back to Wirecard. By 2010, Marsalek was CEO and overseeing these operations. The company was reporting massive profits. The share price soared from a low of €1 in the early days to over 190 at its 2018 peak. This valued Wirecard at €24 billion, more valuable than Deutsche Bank, Germany's largest bank. That year, it joined Germany's prestigious DAX index. The DAX index tracks Germany's 40 largest blue-chip companies. Wirecard replaced Commerzbank, another mainstay of German banking, in the index. Braun was a billionaire on paper. Politicians and investors hailed it as a German fintech success story, with Braun styling himself as a visionary. But beneath the gloss, cracks were forming. So what actually happened? Wirecard was a masterclass in corporate deception, blending accounting tricks, money laundering, and outright fabrication. That fooled investors, regulators, and the auditor. Wirecard had a perfectly legitimate European business, possibly giving comfort to the regulators. However, its market valuation was driven by the supposedly profitable business in Asia. Wirecard claimed that 50% of these profits came from their third-party acquirers in Asia. However, in truth, these were either shell companies or non-existent. Funds would be sent from Wirecard to a TPA or affiliate, then cycle back as supposed merchant payments or revenue, giving the impression that high-volume profitable transactions were occurring. Profitable operations should lead to strong cash balances. Wirecard did claim large cash holdings, but these were supposedly in escrow or trust accounts, managed by trustees in places like the Philippines and Singapore, all tied to the TPA businesses. Just before it all came crashing down, Wirecard claimed to have cash of 1.9 billion euros, supposedly held in 2 Philippine banks. Wirecard had previously arranged forged bank confirmations and staged fake visits for auditors EY. Sensible firms do not keep all their eggs in one basket, and they tend to keep their cash closer to home. Later investigations also revealed ordinary embezzlement. Executives siphoned off millions for personal luxuries, shady deals, and even alleged ties to organized crime. Marsalek in particular lived a double life, renting a mansion near Munich's Russian consulate for secret meetings with spies and officials. He was linked to Russian intelligence, Libyan militias, and even used company funds for private jets. So how did it all come out in the end? The real battle began in 2015 when the Financial Times, led by investigative journalist Dan McCrum, published reports questioning Wirecard's Asian dealings. McCrum was tipped off by whistleblowers. He uncovered inflated revenues and potential money laundering. He sent a researcher to Asia to visit the Wirecard offices, but they found empty spaces and no staff. Wirecard's response to the Financial Times followed the usual playbook: deny everything, accuse the Financial Times of market manipulation to benefit short sellers, and launch lawsuits in multiple countries. Wirecard even went further. They hired private investigators, lawyers, and allegedly used spies to intimidate journalists. McCrum reported being followed, hacked, and faced smear campaigns. In 2019, after further Financial Times exposés on forged contracts in Singapore, Wirecard somehow convinced BaFin, the German financial watchdog, to investigate the journalists and also ban short selling of Wirecard stock for 2 months. They called the reports fake news and filed criminal complaints against McCrum and his colleagues. McCrum later wrote an excellent book, Money Men, which dives into the detail. A research firm called Zotero had also spotted the issues and issued an explosive report in early 2016. This also drew brutal retaliation, surveillance, hacking attempts, family threats, and a BaFin probe against him for market manipulation, which of course was later dropped. Wirecard hired crisis PR firms and spread conspiracy theories, claiming critics are part of a hedge fund plot. Marsalek reportedly used his intelligent connections to fabricate evidence and evade scrutiny. These efforts delayed the inevitable, but they couldn't stop the truth. The unraveling accelerated in 2019. The FT's persistent reporting, backed by whistleblowers like Pav Gill, a Wirecard lawyer who exposed internal fraud plans, kept the pressure on. Singapore police raided the Wirecard offices and arrested executives for forgery. Wirecard commissioned a special audit by KPMG to investigate the claims. There was no smoking gun, but they reported they could neither prove nor deny large portions of revenues from the TPA business. Wirecard claimed they had been exonerated, but nobody else believed the story. Things escalated in the 2019 audit. The auditors demanded further verification of the 1.9 billion euros on the balance sheet, equivalent to all of Wirecard's profits since going public. This verification never arrived. The auditors then suggested a clever plan, a practical real-world test. We met a large portion of the cash back to Germany as proof of existence. Cash, of course, never arrived. Wirecard were at last forced to admit that the cash probably did not exist. On the 18th of June 2020, EY publicly stated that it was unable to sign off on the Wirecard accounts. This is the final nail. Brown resigned the next day while Marsalek went missing. On June the 25th, Wirecard filed for insolvency as banks and creditors called in loans that had been issued on the basis of the inflated financial statements. The shares also became valueless. So what is the fallout? Brown was arrested for fraud and market manipulation. He was taken into pretrial custody in July 2020 due to possible flight risk. I attached a picture of his current home for the last 5 years, the prison in Munich. Trial started in December 22 and amazingly is still ongoing as of February 2026. Brown pleaded not guilty, claiming he was deceived by others. notably Marsalek, he could face 10 to 15 years in prison, but he has effectively served 5 years already. His defense was originally paid for by Wirecard's directors and officers' insurance. When this ran out, he had to rely on a public defender. He is effectively broke. In September 2024, a civil court ordered him and others to pay 140 million euros in damages. Marsalek had fled. He became an Interpol most wanted fugitive, apparently last seen in Russia or Belarus with alleged spy protection. In other fallout, EY faced significant reputational damage. BaFin's had resigned amid criticism for protecting Wirecard rather than the investors it was supposed to protect. 3 Wirecard staff based in the Singapore office and intimately involved in the fake business were also sent to jail. This was a sophisticated fraud. Wirecard managed to fool the auditors, the regulators, and investors, despite noise around their international operations. They must surely have known this would all be revealed. They had a good business to start with. Why the need for the fraud? Maybe greed, a sense of entitlement, excitement of being a business star. The Wirecard scandal exposed deep flaws in Germany's financial oversight, lax regulation, auditor complacency, and a culture prizing national champions over accountability. It cost jobs, shattered trust. Fraud loves dark corners where no one is looking too closely, and people like Dan McCrum remind us of the power of journalism. Wirecard's rise from pawn payments to Dax Darling, fueled by Brown and Marsalek's ambitions, ended in ruin. As one analyst put it, it was Germany's Enron. Thanks very much for listening. Please subscribe to Crooks in Suits and give me a like if you can, and look out for our next story.